There is a grain older than the pyramids. It fed empires before Rome existed. It survives droughts that kill wheat, floods that drown rice, and heat that bakes corn into dust. 1 acre produces more protein than soybeans, more calories than potatoes, more nutrition than quinoa. It grows in deserts, in swamps, in soil so poor nothing else will take root. For 8,000 years, it was humanity's insurance policy against starvation. Then we erased it. Not because it failed, because it refused to obey. A crop that grows too easily, feeds too many, and costs nothing cannot be controlled. And what cannot be controlled cannot be owned. This is the story of the grain that built civilizations, survived the conquistadors, and still waits in the margins where we threw it. Welcome to LeafVault. Before we open this vault, if these stories matter to you, the best way to preserve this wisdom is simple. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share these vaults with those who need to remember what we forgot. The archive opens in the highlands of Ethiopia. 3000 BCE, before Egypt's first dynasty, before the wheel reached Europe, before written language. The Cushitic people cultivated a grass with seeds so small it takes 150 to equal 1 grain of wheat. They called it Teff. The word means lost, because if you drop it, you will never find it again. But what Teff lacks in size, it makes up in everything else. The plant stands 4 feet tall, crowned with loose seed heads that sway in mountain winds. Each stalk produces thousands of grains, burgundy, ivory, brown. The harvest looks like sand. But this sand built an empire. The Aksumite kingdom rose on Teff. From 100 CE to 940 CE, Aksum controlled trade routes from the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean. They minted gold coins, built towering obelisks, conquered kingdoms. Their soldiers marched on injera, the spongy flatbread made from fermented teff. 1 piece in the morning could fuel a warrior through battle. The grain contains 11% protein, higher than wheat at 9%. Iron at 37 milligrams per cup, 7 times more than barley. Calcium at 180 milligrams, more than milk. 8 essential amino acids, rare in grains. Lysine, usually absent in cereals, floods every seed. This is complete nutrition. A grain that can sustain life alone. Ethiopian mothers knew this. For thousands of years, they weaned babies not on milk, but on teff porridge. The grain is so digestible, so gentle. Infants thrive on it. No other grain can make this claim, but teff's real power is invisible. It is a C4 plant using a photosynthetic pathway that captures carbon with brutal efficiency. Where wheat wilts at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, teff keeps growing. Where corn dies without water, teff survives. It thrives in waterlogged soil that drowns rice. It grows in drought that kills millet. From sea level to 10,000 feet altitude, from 20 inches of rain to 80. No crop on earth has this range. Studies in the 1990s proved what farmers knew. Teff yields 3,000 pounds per acre in optimal conditions. But in drought, when wheat collapses to zero, teff still produces 1,500 pounds. Half yield is better than total loss. In the Sahel, where climate change has turned farmland to dust, teff grows. It is built for chaos. And the plant heals land. Teff's root system is dense, fibrous, a living net that grips soil. On slopes where erosion strips topsoil, teff holds it in place. Where soil is compacted, lifeless, teff breaks it open. Ethiopian farmers plant teff before other crops to restore the land. It requires no fertilizer, no pesticides, no irrigation in most regions. Plant the seed in June, harvest in October. The grain stores for years without spoiling, without refrigeration, without chemicals. This was survival itself, not luxury, foundation. Then colonization came. In 1936, Mussolini's Italy invaded Ethiopia. Fascist forces burned fields, slaughtered livestock, and seized grain stores. But they could not stop Teff. Farmers hid seed in caves, buried it in jars, carried it into the mountains. The Italian occupation lasted 5 years. When they retreated, Teff was waiting, unbroken. In the 1984 famine, when drought killed 1 million Ethiopians, it was not Teff that failed. It was politics, war, blockade. The grain survived. People did not. The world saw images of skeletal children, bloated bellies, flies on dying faces. They blamed Africa. They blamed overpopulation. They blamed primitiveness. But Teff was growing. The problem was never the crop. It was who controlled the food. By the 1990s, scientists outside Ethiopia finally noticed. Researchers at Purdue University analyzed Teff's genome. They found something extraordinary. Teff has 36 chromosomes, more complexity than wheat's 42, but arranged differently. It is polyploid, a hybrid of ancient grasses that fused millions of years ago. This genetic complexity gives it resilience, adaptability, the ability to survive where monocultures die. The researchers published papers. They called Teff a miracle grain. They said it could feed the world. Then corporations arrived. In 2003, the Ethiopian government tried to patent Teff varieties abroad, hoping to control the market and protect Ethiopian farmers. The move backfired. International seed companies saw profit. Dutch researchers filed patents on TAF strains they claimed to have improved. Ethiopia fought back. For years, legal battles raged. Who owns a grain grown for 8,000 years? Who owns heritage? Who owns survival? In 2007, the patents were withdrawn. But the damage was done. The message was clear. Corporations want Teff. They want control. Not to feed the hungry, but to own the solution to hunger. And that is the pattern. In the United States, Teff arrived quietly in the 1980s. Eritrean and Ethiopian refugees planted it in Idaho, in Nevada, in the dry corners where nothing else would grow. They grew it for injera, for connection to home, for taste, memory. But American farmers noticed. By 2016, U.S. Teff production hit 40,000 acres, most in Idaho. Yields shocked agronomists. 2,000 pounds per acre in desert conditions using minimal water. Sold as gluten-free flour, Teff commanded premium prices. $3 per pound when wheat sold for 20 cents. The crop became trendy. Health food stores carried Teff pancake mix, Teff pasta, Teff energy bars. Celebrities endorsed it. Gwyneth Paltrow mentioned it. Fitness influencers called it a superfood. But the people who grew it for millennia could barely afford it. In Ethiopia, Teff prices tripled between 2005 and 2015. Farmers grew it for export while their families went hungry. The grain that prevented starvation became a luxury. The same crop, the same land, the same knowledge, now out of reach because markets decided so. This is extraction dressed as progress. The wealthy nations discovered Teff, praised it, bought it, and left Ethiopians priced out of their own heritage. A grandmother in Addis Ababa, interviewed in 2014, said it plainly. We used to eat injera every day. Now it is too expensive. We eat wheat bread from America. Wheat that requires irrigation, fertilizer, pesticides. Wheat that Ethiopia must import. While Teff, their gift to the world, is shipped to California. So why is Teff not everywhere? Industrial agriculture demands efficiency. But efficiency is measured in profit, not nutrition. Teff seeds are too small for modern planters designed for wheat and corn. Harvesting requires specialized combines or hand labor. Neither scales cheaply. The grain sells well in niche markets, but mass production means driving prices down. Lower prices mean lower profits. Lower profits mean corporations lose interest. And Teff resists genetic modification. Its 36 chromosomes, its ancient polyploid complexity make it difficult to engineer. It cannot be locked behind patents easily. It cannot be made dependent on chemical inputs. It just grows, strong, defiant, free. That is the problem. A crop that grows without permission, that feeds without cost, cannot generate perpetual revenue. Monsanto cannot sell Roundup-ready Teff. Bayer cannot patent drought resistance that already exists. Cargill cannot control seeds that store for years and replant themselves. The entire industrial model collapses when crops do not need the industry. So Teff is called primitive, difficult, unsuitable for modern agriculture. The same words used for every indigenous crop that refuses corporate control. The pattern repeats. Amaranth was banned by conquistadors because the Aztecs used it in rituals that defied Catholic control. It was not just food, it was ceremony, it was resistance. So courts ordered the fields burned. Anyone caught growing amaranth was executed. Quinoa was called peasant food until white markets discovered it, then priced Andean families out of their own heritage. A crop that fed Inca emperors became too expensive for their descendants. Fonio, another ancient African grain, was erased by colonial powers pushing rice and wheat, crops that required buying seed, required Western markets, required dependence. Chickpeas were domesticated in the Fertile Crescent 10,000 years ago, feeding civilizations from Mesopotamia to India. But industrial agriculture favors soybeans that can be genetically modified and patented. Millet sustained China and Africa for millennia, requires minimal water, stores for years. But the Green Revolution pushed hybrid rice and wheat that require chemical inputs. Indigenous grains that enable sovereignty are systematically marginalized. Not because they fail, because they succeed without chains. Teff survived by being essential to Ethiopian identity. Atira is not just food. It is culture, religion. Every meal, every ceremony, every celebration, Teff is there. Ethiopian Orthodox fasting days require injera. Weddings require injera. Coffee ceremonies require injera. You cannot erase what a people refuse to forget. The grain became inseparable from the nation itself. To be Ethiopian is to eat teff, but most of the world has never tasted it, as farmers have never planted it. Most governments have never invested in it. That knowledge waits in the margins. Climate change is accelerating. The UN warns that by 2050, heat and drought will make 40% of current farmland unviable. Wheat belts will become dust bowls. Rice paddies will dry. Corn will wither. The crops feeding 8 billion were bred for a climate that no longer exists. They need predictable rain, stable temperatures, consistent seasons. That predictability is ending. The models show chaos, extreme heat, flooding followed by drought, growing seasons shifting, collapsing, disappearing. Industrial agriculture has no answer. The system is built on control, and control requires stability. When stability ends, the system fails. Teff was born in chaos. The Ethiopian highlands, where it evolved, experience wild temperature swings, unpredictable rains, thin soils. The plant adapted to survive uncertainty. It thrives where stability ends, stores nutrition where drought cannot reach. It grows in heat that kills everything else. When industrial systems collapse, Teff will be ready. It has been ready for 8,000 years. In 2021, researchers at the University of Bern studied Teff's drought tolerance at the cellular level. They found that Teff produces unique proteins that protect cells during water stress. These proteins could be transferred to other crops, making wheat and rice more resilient. The scientists published their findings. They talked about genetic engineering. They talked about patents. They talked about licensing. But that requires viewing Teff as genetic material to exploit, not as a crop to grow. The solution is simpler. Just plant Teff. Not as a novelty, not as a health trend, but as a staple. In regions where rain is unreliable, plant Teff. Where heat is rising, plant Teff. Where soil is dying, plant Teff. it does not need saving. It needs planting. Ethiopian farmers have known this forever. One farmer interviewed in 2019 said it plainly: "Teff never abandons us. Even when the rains fail, we get something. Even in bad years, we survive." That is all you need from a crop. Survival, but survival does not sell. Resilience does not generate quarterly profits. Abundance that costs nothing threatens the entire economic model built on scarcity. If people can grow their own food without buying seed every year, without purchasing fertilizer and pesticides, without corporate approval, then what? Autonomy, self-sufficiency, sovereignty, the things empires have always sought to destroy. Teff teaches what they want buried. That abundance does not require control. That perennials return without permission. That adaptation outlasts domination. That the hungriest nations often sit on solutions their colonizers forced them to abandon. The answers were always in the soil, not in laboratories, not in boardrooms, in the dirt where seeds wait, in the knowledge of farmers who never forgot, in the crops that refuse to die no matter how hard systems try to kill them. Teff is not special because it is Ethiopian. It is special because it survived despite everything designed to erase it. And it is not alone. Across the world, indigenous crops wait in the margins, forgotten, dismissed, called weeds. But they are not weeds. They are insurance. They are memory. They are the future we threw away for the illusion of progress. Names change, markets shift, trends fade, but the grain never left. Tiny, ancient, waiting in the soil. In every field in Ethiopia, in every refugee garden in Idaho, in every seed bank where the future is stored. This crop teaches through persistence, through refusal to die. It survived Italian bombs, corporate patents, and market extraction. It will survive what comes next. Because Teff was never fragile, we just forgot to look. The knowledge lives in the seed. In every farmer who plants it, in every family who bakes injera, in every researcher who sees what corporations cannot. That the solution to hunger was never about control. It was about resilience, and resilience grows. In the dirt, free, waiting for hands willing to dig. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe to LeafVault and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.